we're all here for the TCU Online Virtual Classroom webinar. Can y'all see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, super. So we've got a big group today. What I would recommend is that you, if you're not speaking, to mute your mic, just, so we don't have any feedback. And if you have a question, feel free to interrupt, or there also is a chat window that you can click chat and it'll pop up a message, and we're here to help if you have questions. So without further ado, let me put this across my screen better. So we're here for the webinar, and if it will let me advance, there we go. So our quick agenda is, I want to point out that there are resources in our crash course. I'll show you in just a moment. We're going to go through the features, and also there's a few limitations of the virtual classroom tool. I'm going to walk through it, and if you're excited and bold, you can try it yourself. And as I said, you're welcome to ask questions as we go along, or we'll have a dedicated time at the end so I can address your questions. So first and foremost, I want to show you the crash course videos. Actually, I have it over here. Crash course, TCU Online Crash Course, if you haven't found it previously, you all are enrolled as students into it. And if you go into the content here, there are tons and tons of resources available to you as an instructor to learn how to use TCU Online. Within, I believe it's the advanced tools, there is a section called Virtual Classroom, and we have some basic information about it, and we have lots of video and links to how to document. So that's available to you 24/7 if you have any questions or problems as you get going with this. Before we wrap up the day, I will be sending you an email that will have links to some resources as well. And of course, you're always welcome to join us in Open Lab or request a virtual meeting with me. So let's dig into the features. The gist of it is that you can run live video sessions from within your course. A little about Virtual Classroom: it's an integrated web conferencing tool that is in your course. It helps instructors engage learners in two-way video conversations. It is synchronous, so it would be at the same time if you want to have those conversations. Faculty can schedule live discussions, you can have office hours, you can bring in a guest speaker, you can do video-based training, and fill in the blank. We could probably come up with a scenario that it could be a good use for you. It works best in Chrome and Firefox, and I'll explain more about that in just a few minutes. Safari should be supported soon. A little bit more about this, I just explained you can schedule all kinds of discussions. Your discussions can be set to automatically record and then also be integrated into your course content modules alongside other learning materials. So if you have a module for week 1 and you want to have a discussion at a certain date and time, you can embed that meeting directly into week 1. It allows for voice and video conferencing. You can have up to seven users, yourself included, sharing a webcam at the same time. So if you have more students, you can just say, hey, the first 6 students plus me will be able to share their cam. Or you can designate, I want this student and this student to share their webcam. The max number of participants in your course can be 100. There's also a whiteboard and documented desktop sharing, a live chat, and there is voice over IP based audio that is through your mic and speakers in your computer. And for instructors, you can call in through a phone if you'd like. So I mentioned there are a few limitations, and that is mostly with Safari. Basically, and I'm going to go in depth a little bit more in a bit, but if you try to launch from Safari, it will give you a message that says, please use Chrome and Firefox to join the meeting. So basically, you can never click the button within Safari. The reason is that Safari does not support HTML5 coding, which kind of is industry standard, and Apple is just a bit behind on it. So it will prompt you at least and tell users that you need to go to another browser. I went ahead and included Internet Explorer as a limitation because in general, while it does function pretty well, IE tends to be a little buggy, sometimes Edge as well, within the internet in general. So we recommend our TCU Online users just stick to Chrome and Firefox. And Safari if you're not using Virtual Classroom, but if you are, use Chrome or Firefox. Another limitation, if you want to call it that, is that it must have a faculty member launch it and moderate it and schedule it. So your students can't have their meetings on their own. You can launch it and step away if you're at home and let them have their discussion, but you have to be the one to coordinate it. Your recordings are also available for only 4 months. If screen recording is important to you, if session recordings, that archival element is important, we can use Panopto or something else to record that session for use later. And then as an institution, we have a limit of 250 sessions per week. As of right now, we don't really anticipate us going over this, and we'll just get a little note from our account executives if we do. So that shouldn't impact you unless you plan on having over 250 each week. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it, and I would like to invite you also to go ahead and log in to TCU Online, and I want you to look for a course called Virtual Classroom Demo, and actually it's Virtual Classroom Demo Shell, and I have February 2018. If you don't want to follow along, if you don't want to try it along with me, totally fine. You can just watch the screen on my computer. But if you'd like to, I'd love for you to join as a student. You're all enrolled as a student into this course. So if you wouldn't mind, just say I'm there whenever you are in the course.
I'm there, Carrie. This is Steve.
Super. I'll just give it another minute. Let more people join. And again, you're welcome to just follow along on my screen, but I would love for you to join me here.
I am there. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so as more of you access, just go ahead and jump in when you're able to. We're looking for the Virtual Classroom Demo Shell. And I want to point out a couple ways that you can see when there is an existing meeting scheduled. I've scheduled one for this specific time frame, so it's available for us right now. So the first place you can see it is within the calendar on the home page. It automatically, when I scheduled this, it added it to the class calendar. So this is really great because it will show up in the students' notifications. If they're using the Pulse app, it'll show up there. It'll show up in your calendar, everywhere. So point of access 1, the calendar. If they select this, it will bring up more details, and you'll see there's a hyperlink. I'm not going to click it right now, but I could click it to enter the meeting. So the next point of contact of how we can get into it is under the People tab, and we have the full tool, Virtual Classroom. You're welcome to click there. I'm going to show you the third way that you can access, though, and that is under the Content tool. And I have a module called February 8th Webinar, and I have a quick link within my content module to this session. So you can pick one of those 3 avenues to open the session. You can either go through the content, the calendar, or go to People Virtual Classroom. I'm going to launch here. And the first time you open it, it will say, we're trying to access your info. Would you like to proceed? Yes. So as a student, it may say something like waiting for it to launch, or I forget the exact wording, but as an instructor, I want to give you a little preview here. When I set this up, I had it set so that I can invite an outside user. So that is an option. So if you have a guest speaker, you can get a URL and send that to them, and this will allow them, without having a TCU Online account, to access the virtual classroom at the specific date and time. It gives some quick tips. Each of these is clickable for info on recording and participation and audio. There's also some settings and help available. But let's just dive in. So I'm going to click Enter Meeting Room, and it should allow all of you to do that at this point. So when you open that, the first time you open it, it gives you all of these little pop-up like tour type things. The first question is, how would you like to join the audio? You can do audio, you can do listen only, and I want to give a word of caution. I'm going to mute mine in a second because we will have feedback. So you might want to do the same thing, and that's because we're kind of double layered here with using Zoom and this. So I'm going to do audio. It's going to ask how I want to do speaker. I can test my speaker, and then enter the session. Like I said, I am going to immediately mute myself within virtual classrooms so that I'm not bursting our ears. Y'all should probably do the same thing. I'm actually hearing some feedback, so probably want to mute that. So a quick tour. I'm going to start in the top right corner with the question mark. If you click that, that'll bring back up those little blue boxes to tell you what your options are. You have settings. You can record your session by clicking the little dot if you're an instructor. You can expand your sections, and we'll walk through these in a moment. This main area is your presenter area. It's where you can share your content or have a whiteboard. And you can manage participation down in this section. So I'm going to click first on these three little dots and show that you can make it full screen. You can go to settings, and this will allow for closed captions. You can choose if you don't want your students to be able to use their webcam or chats or whatever. And then the next section is, and the logout button is also under there. The next little icon is green, and this tells you if your speed is good of your connection. I'll tell you, if you ever have VPN on, it's probably going to show as yellow or red. I often have VPN on as I'm remote, and it doesn't go so well. So I would highly recommend closing out as much internet tools that you have, including VPN, to get a good and steady connection there. Moving on to the next section, I'm going to actually start recording here. In the top left corner, there are a couple icons. The first one is webcams. And so in order to see webcams, we need to enable ours. So if you have one and you feel a little friendly and want to share yours, at the very bottom of your screen, you should have a share webcam button. So I'm going to click mine. Here I am. Hello. So here we all are, and we can have up to 7 people join. As you see, I'm sporting my lovely headset, so if you really decide to become a pro at doing this, I recommend it. I think your audio and speakers will probably be a little smoother, but you are welcome to just use the built-in tools as well, of course. You can toggle that away, so it's still there, but I'm not looking at everybody's beautiful faces right now by hiding it. We have a chat, and that's the little chat bubble, so you can say hello. And, anything you type in the public chat will show up for anyone else that is in this session at the same time. We can also upload a file, and that will share to the group. So let me go to I have a lot of junk in here. Oops, it's actually in here. Oh, I have totally, here it is. We'll try this. So I should be able to upload a file and it will show up and you can download it. So that's pretty cool. You can share that pretty easily. The next thing is the little people icon, and this is where we can see everyone in the course. I can see who is muted. I can see who has I guess it's headphones, or if it's their sound is on. I can also select a person and make them a presenter. I can also chat directly to somebody. So if I needed to keep Becky in line over here or keep Ron or somebody else in line, I could, type to them, or if they had a question that they wanted to ask me specifically, I can address them. I will tell you, as a presenter, it takes a little bit of smooth moves to manage both a chat room and presenting at the same time. That's partially why I have Desmond on today, because there were going to be 12 or 13 of us. And so if you do plan on using this and do plan on promoting the use of the chat room, you might want to designate someone to be your lead responder. Or if you have a TA, that would be great to be able to have that person fielding questions in the chat room while you are managing the speaking part. So just something to consider. Other options here, you can kick the user out if they are not behaving. Sorry to pick on you, Becky. I don't mean to. Yeah. You can unmute someone's audio, or, lots of options here. So you can do all kinds of things. So if you had a student presentation, they can be the presenter. You also, it's saying here, you can clear the status. What that means is down in the bottom, there is a little status. It's a little hand icon. And there are lots of ways that you can have your students engage with you. So instead of having people saying, yes, I get it, or, oh, I love this, or raise their hand, instead of them interrupting you or sending a chat every time they had that, they can just click their status icon as like raise your hand, and you or whomever is watching that can say, oh, we have a question. So at any time you can clear that status from there. You can prompt your students to, show thumbs up if they're getting whatever you're talking about. And, lots of different options here for communicating in a simple way. The next thing that you can do over here is the actions bar or button. You can mute all, and that is a nice thing. If you have 30 microphones that are on, you can get everybody to be quiet except you. So that's something that I would recommend for sure. You can upload a presentation. So I'm going to show you in a moment. You can also share your full screen or a specific application, or you can upload a presentation and display that. Now, something I learned the other day is that this really functions the best with PDFs. So if you have a PowerPoint, I would recommend exporting it as a PDF to share that. I ran into some glitches when I tried to share an actual PowerPoint the other day. So if you want to share a document, you can easily upload that, and you and your students can click through it, and it's pretty smooth. It's kind of nice that it has it as slides, so you can easily say, oh, in slide 3, XYZ. Other things you can do is initiate a poll. So you can click initiate a poll, and on the fly you can ask your students a question. So my question is, today is Thursday, correct or not? So you can vote yes or no. Is today Thursday? So go ahead, if you see that, answer. And as the instructor, I can publish that feedback. It's good. We all are sure that it's Thursday, so that's good. You can also come up with a, on-the-fly poll. So if I was saying, pizza, tacos, you can tell I'm hungry. What would you guys like for our class party meal? I can put that out there, and y'all can vote. And And obviously you can use this for more class applicable content than silly things like meals. But you can easily poll on the fly. So you can do multiple choice, you can do yes, no, you can do fill in the blank where the instructor comes up with the answers and or with the options, and then the students will respond. Before I go into screen share and enable drawing, are there any questions so far about the webcams or the chats or status or anything I've shown so far? Mm-hmm. So I'll just give an example. I'm going to make you a presenter, and it should pop up. Tell me what's on the screen there. Yeah, so you would upload your PDF of your presentation, and then you can give your glorious presentation to us. Sure, sure. And let's see, where can I not make you the presenter? Oh, that could be interesting. Does it have anything on your screen, Monica, that says to leave presenter status? Oh, I have to make myself a presenter. Okay. See, I'm still learning. So many options. So that was kind of underwhelming, but we just learned if you can make a student a presenter. They have the option. They can't do everything. You didn't have shared desktop, right? Okay, so it's probably the easiest for your students anyway to take a presentation and upload that. It's pretty direct. So I would recommend that if you want that to happen, and then, encourage them to have their webcam up so that you can see them. And then when you're done, make yourself your presenter again. That'll work pretty well. Any other questions before we move forward? All right. Feel free to jump in if you have any. So the next thing we want to do is share my desktop. So if I wanted to go beyond this specific presentation that I'm sharing, I can click Share Desktop. And it will ask me, do I want to do my whole screen or just a specific application? So I have right now, it looks like I've got my Zoom window, I've got a web like a browser, there's another browser page, and there is PowerPoint. So because I want flexibility, I'm going to do my entire screen. So now we're kind of in a vortex here because I'm sharing on 2 platforms. So it's doing a crazy thing here. But let me hop over and oh, it's like really going crazy. So I could, bring you to a web page or take you on a tour somewhere. So this would show up if you're sharing your screen within Virtual Classroom. I'm going to stop sharing there so that we get out of the weird double sharing thing. And let me clear, it really doesn't want me to leave that. Okay, so the next thing that we can do is enable drawing. This will give us a full whiteboard, and I can go to a new slide. Oops. So we'll pretend that this is something we're talking about here, and I want to emphasize it. I can, circle it. I can change the color of my pen if I want it to be red. And highlight certain things. I can sort of draw with it. I can also type. I can add on to the screen. We can also, let me see, I can clear out the page. Let me see what clear. Can I get a blank screen? Desmond, do you recall how to get a blank screen?
Go back to share desktop. There was a button, okay, and share, and then go back and say that you didn't.
So,
There was a button that popped up just a minute ago, but I'm not
okay.
familiar with where there's another button there.
Well, I will follow up with all of you because I have just had a brain freeze as to where we go to get a blank page. We should be able to get a fully blank page. And I can't remember how we get it, but you can have a blank area. You can just point to stuff. You can draw. You can do shapes. All kinds of options here. Now, one limitation is you cannot hand this over to a student, and so it's just the presenter who can do it. So that is a limitation there. I'm going to disable my drawing, and at this point, this is the basic tour. It's fairly easy to jump in and play with. Are there any other questions before we get into how we create them and add it into our content? All right, I will take that as no other questions. So there are a couple ways that you can exit it. You can close out of your browser, or you can go the official way and click log out in the top right corner. And it'll ask you if you want to leave the session, and then it'll ask you to rate. You can just close out at that point. So we're back in our course, and I want to show you, before I have you jump into a sandbox or another course that you have, I want to show you a little behind the scenes here of if I'm an instructor and I go straight to virtual classroom. I do have the ability to enter the class from here, but I have a little bit different view than you do because I can schedule and things like that. So before we go in to create things, I want you all, if you would like, to jump into a sandbox course or a master course, or you can do it in a live course, but students may, see stuff pop up. But if you'd like to follow along, please find some course that you have access to that you can add to schedule a meeting in, or at least go through the steps to pretend like you will. You don't actually have to click submit. So I'll give you just a moment to go and try to jump into a course. And when you're there, I want you to go to people and then virtual classroom, and let me know when you're there. And again, it's totally fine to just follow along and watch, but I'll give you a chance to do it if you'd like.
I'm there, Carrie.
Okay, super. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So if you're a professor in a course, you should now see within People Virtual Classroom a Schedule Meeting button. So I would love for you to click Schedule Meeting. And the setup is really simple. They've really simplified it down to just a few fields. So I'm going to just call mine Example Meeting. You can call it whatever your heart desires. So just title it something that makes sense. If you're putting in your syllabus that you're having a specific kind of critique or something, I would match the title with the title in your syllabus. So add that in. You can set the date for your event. I'm going to do mine for tomorrow at 10 a.m. And notice that the default is Central because that is our official TCU time zone. You can set your max duration anywhere from 15, 30, 60, 75 to 90 minutes. I typically like to overshoot it because it would be a bummer to be cut off. So I typically go for 90 minutes always, just because, you might as well. But if you want to keep it to very short and sweet, segments, go for it. You can set to automatically record or have the option to record, so I would recommend clicking that button. Now, a reason why you may not want to do that is if you're using this maybe for office hours and you don't want other people to see it, or there doesn't need to be a record of it. So note that you can also delete recordings, but it's an option. You can also have an automatic link to the recording that would be generated. This is another thing that if you're going to record, you may want to have a link as well. You can also allow for external participants. So if you know that you're going to have a user who is a non-TCU user who is going to guest speak, then by all means click allow external participants, and then you can share that hyperlink with them prior to the event and they can join you. This next option is whole class. So if you want everyone in the class to know that it's happening and that everybody's invited, select whole class. I'm going to create one as whole class, and then I'm going to go back in a moment and just create one with a specific user or a group so that you can see how that functions. If you uncheck whole class at this point, you won't be able to come back later and add whole class. You will be able to manually add each user into it, but you won't have that option to come back and change that. You also have the ability to have recurring events. So if it is office hours or if it's something that will happen every 2 weeks or whatever, you can do it as recurring. For this example, I'm just going to do not recurring. Any questions about this before I move on? Okay, so go ahead and click Save. And now you'll see your meeting. Mine is example meeting. Here's the date and time. If you notice that we have a couple different action items between the one that I had previously scheduled and the one that's upcoming. The one that we were just playing in only has this little open door button, and that's because the time of start has already hit. So the only option at this point is to go into it and open it. But since this other one that we just created has not yet happened, we can either cancel it, or we can click the pencil to edit it, or we can try to open it, but it'll say, if I try to do that, it says your meeting starts in 21 hours. So I'm going to go back. So, oops. Let me refresh. It does not like the back button. If you click Edit Meeting, you'll see that some of our options are still there. We can record, we can do external participants. It does not let you change it to recurring, and like I said, the whole class option is now grayed out. So at this point, we're ready to go until, in my case, 10 a.m. tomorrow. There's really nothing else that we need to do. We'll notice if we go to the home page by clicking on the course selector on the top, it's been added to our course calendar automatically, which is pretty awesome. The next thing that we might want to do, before I go back and show you like grouping, I want to show you how you would add it into your content. So this is very simple. You would just go to Content, and you'd select the module that you want to be in. If you don't have a module, you can quickly just add one. And you're just simply going to select existing activities. And you'll notice we have virtual classroom at the bottom. So just like if it was an assignment or discussion or quiz, you can add this in. And it will bring up all of your scheduled appointments. So example meeting that starts tomorrow, I can click that, and it'll automatically add in. So this is really something that we would recommend, so that if you have what we're doing this week, and then you have a reading and a lecture, and oh, by the way, here's also this meeting, you can add that in so that it's in context with the rest of your module. Any questions about the creation of it so far, or adding it to your content topic or module?
Carrie, if I do that and I add it to a module and content, and then later I go and cancel the meeting, does it disappear from that module and the content, or do I have to?
That is a great question. It does not disappear, so you will need to go and delete that topic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that works. So on that, if you're kind of quiet, so let me repeat that. So the question was, if you delete it, you cancel it within the virtual classroom because, you know, something came up with the schedule or whatever, it will delete from the virtual classroom, but it does not automatically go away from the module. So in that case, you delete it first from the virtual classroom tool, and then you come to that content module and select delete topic, and that will fully remove it. So on that same thought, when you copy your course over, say from a master shell or a spring shell to a fall or whatever scenario, because these are date driven and locked in by the users enrolled in the course, they will not copy from course to course from the virtual classroom tool. So it's not something that you can set up ahead of time. You need to wait until you get your live course to set them up. What will copy are these content items. So if I were to copy this course, it will still bring these over. But if you were to, you know, be in that new course, but not this old course, it's going to say not authorized, or it's going to throw some kind of a note that this meeting doesn't exist because it's looking for the course specifically with that content. So that's something that you'll have to check through as you launch your course for the next semester. Just put it as a to-do list, like I need to schedule my new classroom, virtual classroom meetings, and I need to go through my modules and make sure that the right ones are showing up. Okay, so I want to show you, and you're welcome to try this or you can just watch. If you wanted to schedule a meeting that was for a specific user, so I'm going to just pick Kenneth. We'll pretend that we have a meeting about a presentation he's doing. I'm going to put it tomorrow at 11. It'll be an hour, and I'm not going to click the whole class. So I'm going to record it, but that's it. So I just have Kenneth meeting tomorrow at 60 minutes, and I'm going to record. I'm going to click save. And now when I go to my list of courses, I now have a new icon. It's a little group of people, and you can manage the participants. So this gives me my list of users in the course. And let's see. Wait. Oh, I have to sync my roster. Invalid. Oh, come on. Technology. There's always something. Let's see. So this should show your updated list of users. Super fun. So I may have to just X out of this. You would basically just select the person and click the little arrows here, and it would move that specific user over, and then you click save. I'm going to try just refreshing my screen here to see if this will let me try that again. Kenneth, where are you? Well, y'all get the point. So I'm not sure why he's not showing up here. It's kind of weird. So basically you can have these for specific users, and what would happen is if I scheduled this for that specific user, all of the rest of you would not see that available in the list of the course. Only that user that was assigned or the multiple users would see that particular meeting. So the last thing I want to show you here is the recorded list. So this was our demo from Monday's webinar that we did, and there is a link to delete it. So if it was something that you didn't want to keep, or there is a link to publicly share it, which is kind of nice, so you can send that outward, or you can watch it within the course itself. So this is a little underwhelming because I had there's our videos from the other day, but I had my, similar like today, I did not have my audio on within the actual virtual classroom because I was doing a webinar. But you can see that we have our chat window available. If we had put any downloads, they would show up. So it comes up pretty nice. You can upload a transcript for accessibility and add captions. If I had been sharing my screen or having a whiteboard, it would show up here. And it only shows a couple of the webcams at a time. So it does show some cool stuff here. So the other thing is, for a recorded classroom or recorded virtual classroom, if you have it embedded within your content module and you select it, it will also show the recording here, which is really nice. So if it was a review or something else, you'll see at the top the shared webcams, the next part is the shared screen, and the bottom is the chat and the downloads. So your users can look at it later if you have that all set up there. Okay, so at this point, I have gone through everything and y'all have tried. We've demoed it. We walked through creating your own classroom, embedding it within your content, viewing archived recordings. I attempted to show you adding a single user to a group, and there's something weird about how I added people in, I think. Are there any questions, or would you like me to go over anything else?
If you have a group, if you have a class divided into, say, 3 groups, and you have Group A that can view this virtual classroom,
Meeting.
or whatever, the meeting. And then Group A leaves and you have Group B come in. Can you go back and change it so that only Group B can view their chat now in this same meeting?
Okay, so if you had, so let me just recap. So if you're using groups basically, and you would have, say this was Group A meeting, you would add those people in. We'll just, wow, there's some weird stuff going on with this. I don't know who this person is. So we'll pretend that this was Group A, we can save it, and then Group B would have access to another meeting, and Group C for yet another. I would have separate meetings for each one. Okay. I would not change the attendees within the managed participants. Okay. It'll get a little wonky. Also, once you launch it, you notice that we don't have any edit buttons. So that's something that even in the archive, it'll still have it where only these users would see it. Specific to your content topic, if you wanted only Group A to see this specific item, we can edit the properties here, and I can add restrictions. So for instance, this was Monday's group, and if I wanted to, I had created groups in this course. So if I wanted to say by group enrollment, the February 5th group, only they, once I hit update, can actually see this recording in the content later. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Carrie, I have a question.
Okay.
In a couple of weeks, I'm going to start a telecollaboration project with a classroom in Turkey.
Oh,
and
wow.
8 hours difference from us.
Okay.
So I was hoping there would be an asynchronous, some asynchronous functions on here, but it's all synchronous. Is that correct?
It is synchronous, and as far as the actual, I mean, if it's basically it's fully synchronous tool where you have to say have your videos on at the same time, share your screen at the same time. Now, if you wanted to, as the instructor or the lead of this project, go ahead and present material or do a little mini presentation, you can record it ahead of time and then send it to them and they can look at it. However, they would not be able to participate. It would just be a recording.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be able to use Wigio, and I've used that in the past for other projects, but that's not around anymore. Is there any other tool within D2L that would allow for an asynchronous exchange?
A discussion would allow for that. If is this a TCU course, or is it like an outside kind of project, or?
It's a TCU course.
Okay.
So is there a URL that can be created to share a TCU course discussion thread with outside participants?
There is not, but I think we should take the conversation offline. I think that we may be able to enroll your users into your class, the non-TCU users possibly, and then they can have access to it. Cool. And get into the course like a normal student. So send me an email, or you can just send it to e-learning and we can talk further about it, because that may be the solution.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
And Carrie, I did find that button to switch back to whiteboard after you have uploaded a presentation. It's actually in the actions button.
Okay.
And you go back to upload presentation, and then you go back to the default, which was the whiteboard.
Got it. So the very bottom left, that little plus sign. Yes. Okay. Thank you for finding the magical button. I knew it was there somewhere. Okay. So before we wrap up, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about how you might use this in your class, and if this sounds like it may be a solution, or you know, just curious how you might want to use this. If anyone would like to share, I would love to hear it.
Carrie, I think I might use it for office hours or for a guest speaker, especially the guest speaker idea.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, I know that, was that Connie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know that especially adjuncts often have issues with office hours. There may not be an office, or it may be a weird time. Or if you teach online or whatever, it's sometimes really great to have that personal conversation, and it may be a lot more convenient to have, you know, they can sit in their own room, dorm room, or wherever and meet with you. So that's great.
Actually, we share an office for adjuncts.
Yes.
There's not privacy unless people get up.
Yes.
And, you know.
I have been there. I have had that experience too. So yeah, it's a little rocky. So this could be a good option. Any other ideas of how you might use this?
Becky did put in a chat. She's exploring using this to prep students prior to lab activities.
Perfect. I think it could also be great for exam reviews. I know some faculty do that, and sometimes it's hard to get a good date and time to do that, or a location. I think space is a problem often. So if it's outside of class time, you know, it could be a good option. Okay, so we have gone through everything. I'm going to hang out for just a minute. You're welcome to stay and ask more questions. Otherwise, we are done for today. And please be on the lookout for an email from me. I will send a follow-up with a bunch of resources. And of course, you're welcome to come to Open Lab at any time. And if you want to play with it, our team is always happy to jump in and play. So I'm also happy remotely to log in and test it. I definitely recommend, if you plan on implementing this in your course, to play a little bit and try it out so that you feel comfortable and confident. You know, it's technology, so sometimes we hit some wonderful blips, as you saw me with adding a person. It happens. So, you know, just prepare to be flexible, and I would prepare to play as well. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining, and y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.